Hi there. In the last video, we used merge in Power Query to essentially do a large VLOOKUP from one table to the next to take a bunch of data from a secondary table and add it to a primary table. And that works pretty well. And I think it's a pretty important skill. So with the notion that sometimes just repetition is a great way to learn something, we're going to do basically the same thing here, just with more secondary tables. So what we've got here is this is a query in progress, and if we come over here to raw data, this essentially is pulling from this table right here. So we can imagine that we've got one table that again has a bunch of transactional data. It has when the transaction happened, it had what order it was associated with, it has what the product was, it has what the store was, it had what the customer was, and how many of the products were bought. However, unless we're just geniuses or we've worked with this data for 300 years and we just know what product 0010 is and store 003 is, we want to actually get the information about each one of these products, stores, customers from these dimension tables over here. So if we look over here, we've got a product dimension table, so it's based on the product ID, or this thing right here. We've got, for each one of these rows, we could tell what the product name was, what the category was, what the subcategory was, and perhaps more importantly, what the unit price was. So we can actually get sort of a total sales column over here. If we come over here, we've got a store dimension table. So based on that store ID, we can tell what the store was, and, oh, another typo, what the store was, and what state the store was in. And over here, we've got, for each one of these customer IDs, we can tell who the customer was, what their name was, what city they're from, what state they're from, and whether they're a homeowner or a renter, because maybe we're interested in including that information in our analysis. So again, to start off with, here's where we're starting is, technically we're starting with this table over here, and we want to use these foreign keys to join or to merge the information from these secondary tables. So the first thing we got to do is we have to turn each one of these tables into a query. Easy enough. So we're going to one by one. We're going to head up to Power Query. I'm going to get this data from a table. Now, in a lot of these lessons, I'm kind of lax with naming these things. In the real world, you always want to name your queries pretty properly. In this instance, you can leave it as tabbed in products. That might be a little confusing, so I'm going to go ahead and change this to query tabbed in products, just to distinguish. It's nice and easy to distinguish between the query and the actual table itself. And I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to, let's see. So what we want to do at this point is we want to go close and load 2. And so we don't really need to create a secondary sheet that has this exact same information in it. So all we really want to do is create a connection. We also don't need to add it to the data model. We can if we want to, but I'm not going to. So we're just going to create a query that references this table. It doesn't actually do anything with it. It doesn't load it anywhere. It just points to it. So I'm going to click OK. So now we've got this second query, which points to the dim products table, and it doesn't do anything with it. It just points to it. So let's do that for the other dimension tables. We're going to click over here. We're going to go to Get Data From Table. We're going to head over to the name, query name. We want to name it properly. So now this has gone from table dimension stores to query table dimension stores. And we're going to head to close and load. We're going to close and load 2 because we don't want to bring back all the data into a sheet. All we need is the connection. All we need is the pointer. Click OK. Alright, so let's head over here. Let's keep going. We're on a roll here. We're going to get data from table. And we're going to get this, change the name, query, tab dimension customers. And all we want to do is point to this thing. So I'm going to get close and load 2. So we're going to, let's see, only create connection. Go ahead and hit load. And I guess that's it. We only have the, let's see, 1, 2, 3. Do we only have the 3 dimension tables? For some reason I thought we had more. I guess that's it. Okay. So now that we've got all 3 dimension tables, let's go ahead and start loading them to the main table. So let's head over here. We're here. This is where we're working on. Oh, by the way, we're in second multiple join.xlsx. I think I did not mention that before. And we're here in the query sheet. So let's head over here to the query join, which is referencing right now the fact table. Right click on it. I'm going to hit edit. So as you can see right now, if we head up to the source step, all this does is pull the data in from that fact table, which we've seen before. So let's go ahead and start merging these things. So let's head up here to merge queries. Okay, so what query do we want to merge on? Well, we could merge on itself, but we're not going to do that. Let's just go one by one. We're going to merge with the query tab dim products. Okay, so now that we've got this, the second thing we have to do is we have to select what the what columns we're going to merge on or join on. So if we notice this one has a product ID here, is what's called the primary key, the unique identifier for each one of these rows. So we're going to click on that, and there happens to be a product ID up here, so we're going to click on that as well, because these are the columns that actually sort of connect these two tables, right? So any value in here you can use to know to look up what row to gather information from this table right here. Okay, join kind left outer, that's correct. Click OK. All right, so I'm going to expand one at a time. So we're going to uncheck use original column name as prefix. Now we can select these one at a time. The big thing we don't want to do is, since there's a product ID in both tables, we don't want two copies of it. So I'm going to uncheck product ID, and we're going to just take in everything else. And click OK. There we go. So now we've got all the product information in our table here. So let's keep going. Merge queries. All right. So we have the product information. Now we want the store information. Well, do we want to merge on the product ID or join on the product ID? No, we don't, because this isn't the product table anymore. This is the store table. So the primary key here, or the unique identifying column, is the store ID, and we can see that each one of these has a store ID. So we're going to click up here, say, hey, use this store ID to go get data from this table. That's how you're going to know which row to pull data from. And we want a left outer. That's correct. Click OK. We're going to expand this one as well. Make sure to use original column name as prefix is unchecked. We don't need the store ID because it already exists over here. And we're going to click OK. Great. We've only got one more. Merge queries. Okay, so we've done the products, the stores. Let's go to customers. And see, so it's not the product, it's not the store, it's the customer. So we want to use the customer ID because that is the first column over here. It doesn't always have to be the first column here in your lookup table, but it usually is. So there's your ID table. That's what we're going to look up with, or look up to. So we're going to use each one of these values to look up which row we're interested in over here. And we want a left outer join. That's correct. And we're going to click OK. So we get our last table here. We're going to click on the expansion button. We don't need customer ID because it already exists over there. We're going to click OK. And there we go. Now we've got all of that useful data. So we can now throw this into a pivot table and sort of group and filter on it to get a good, interesting report that gives us sort of meaningful information that we can pass on to decision makers. So I hope by now sort of the basics of merging or joining here in Power Query are nice and apparent to you. Okay, well, I do hope that was helpful, and I will see you next video.